To me, one of the things that has really served me well is this mindset that, life is working for me and that all of my circumstances are happening for a reason in order to serve my highest good. And I truly, truly believe that. And so to me, talking about, taking personal responsibility and really being like kind of revolutionary in terms of how we do that is an essential component of creating our true abundance. And an essential component of really stepping into fully loving ourselves, fully accepting ourselves, fully embracing and who we are and our worth and actualizing our true abundance now. So when I talk about, or when I think about personal responsibility for our life, I talk about this in one of the very first modules inside of Money Mastery Academy, that it's really about owning our lives, taking full responsibility for all the good, all the amazing, the beautiful, the exquisite, delicious, rich, yummy stuff that's in our life, and recognizing that all the messy components, the stuff that like hasn't happened yet, the things that are frustrating us, the things that are like pissing us off, the stuff that we're waiting for to happen is also things that we have to own, that we are responsible for creating. And this is really powerful because most of us resist this work. And if there's an edge of resistance, like there's something probably to lean into there because there's like a triggering point, right? And I think that the most of us resist this because we've invested in this lie that our desires, our happiness, our worth, it's somehow conditional. And when I say conditional, what I mean is that, unless we achieve X, then we're not a success, or we aren't worthy unless something external happens outside of us to make us happy, right? Unless I make X amount of money, then I'm not a success. Unless, my kids behave a certain way, then I can't feel like a good mom. Unless I weigh this amount, then I can't feel like I'm, beautiful, whatever. It doesn't really matter what it is, but that's the conditionality, right? That's the lie that says something outside of us has to shift or change or be a specific way in order for us to feel good inside, right? That's why we resist this work. Because, right, we think that if we own our part in why something hasn't happened yet that we're desiring, we think it's because something's wrong with us or we're somehow less worthy. And so I want to just smash that lie right now because it just simply is not true, right? We are worthy because we were born worthy. You are worthy in God's eyes, no matter what you do or do not do. And you might want to write that down so that you remember it, right? I am worthy because I am, because you exist. That's it. Nothing to prove. And that to me is so essential because when we remember that truth, then we can really get into the depth of honesty that probably will make most of us uncomfortable, like kind of want to hide because it's like, oh crap, I'm actually the problem here. But when we have that depth of honesty, it's because we love ourselves enough to be willing to work through it, right? To see that, where's the place where I'm not showing up? Why something hasn't happened in my life is because, or why something's not the way I want it, or why I don't feel the way I want to feel is because I'm not showing up in a certain way that's going to be creating that. I'm not being who I'm really born to be. And it's not because I'm not worthy or I'm not deserving, right? It has nothing to do with that. And when we can get into that level of honesty, that's when the magic and the freedom and the transformation can happen because that's when we can actually shift, right? Inside of that awareness, we can actually shift. So what I'm talking about here is a depth of honesty that's going to make most of us uncomfortable, right? And I'm going to give you some examples and you're probably going to be like, "Ooh, I've said that. I've done that. I've said and done all the things I'm going to give you examples about. So don't worry about it. We all have. But it's going to be essential for us to get into this depth of honesty and level of honesty if we actually want to live our most authentic, fully self-expressed lives. And I don't know about you, but like I'm done with like dinking around on the side. I want to be in life fully, vibrant, fully expressed, being honest, speaking my truth, loving full out, because that's where the juice is, right? That's where the richness is. That's where like things are magnetic when we're in that level of honesty and self-love and compassion and acceptance for ourselves. And then we get to do the big things that we're here to do, right? Ultimately, it comes down to that, right? Anything that is stopping us from being that because we think that, something is or isn't happening inside of our lives based on something that's outside of us, like is total crap. Our lives, and I say this all the time and I'm going to say it again, right? Our lives will only get as big and beautiful on the outside as we are whole and healed on the inside. And that means taking responsibility for the way that we're being, the way that we're showing up, where we're keeping ourselves stuck in old patterns, emotions, limiting thoughts, all of it. The external is always a reflection of the internal. We are the creators of our lives, and we get to let it be as good as we get to let it be. That's the magic of taking personal responsibility. And so this is why this is such an important conversation. And you guys, I've been having this conversation consistently with myself for like a couple months here, brewing in the background. So again, I just want to say that this is where the freedom and the liberation happens, because when we know why things aren't happening and we claim responsibility for it, that's when the shift becomes possible. So let's talk about what personal responsibility really means. And what I know that each one of you is here to make an impact. I know that if you were here listening in on this conversation, whether it's live or a replay, that you have a vision that you're building, you have a legacy that you are creating, whether that's your career, your company, your life, and you deserve to do that from a place of unconditional love and total self-acceptance for yourself, recognizing that that is going to be the foundation of every aspect of your life. And so loving yourself enough to be honest with, right, when you're not really being your best. Anything less than that, and you really can't do the things that you say you want to go do, right? Imagine that you have a foundation that is like like paper thin, right? You could have a solid, like big, steady, firm, cement rock foundation built on your self-love, built on your self-acceptance, built on your willingness to just like really be honest about things. And that's going to hold you up. But if you've got this like paper thin foundation, imagine trying to go get your next 6-figure contract with that. Imagine trying to like create the most beautiful, loving relationship with that paper thin foundation. Imagine trying to like fully support your, your spouse in their endeavors with that paper thin foundation. Imagine trying to show up and market yourself and be totally visible and out there with your brand with a paper thin foundation. You're going to like rip right through it and fall down, right? Like the paper is going to be like, no, it's not going to hold you up. So I want to express that because, you don't want things to collapse, right? So what's foundationally required inside of this work, and it's totally potent and applicable to this abundance work that we're doing here. What's completely foundationally required, if you're going to be super honest with yourself, is that you unabashedly love yourself, right? that you believe in the truth of your divine right as an abundant being, right? To live this abundant, beautiful life that God wants for you. To accept yourself completely. Accept even the pieces of you that feel like they're broken or screwed up or traumatized or whatever. The grittiness that you've had to experience, to just accept and love all of it. Like you're just gonna like pour love over it like it's honey. Loving yourself completely, right? Truly starting to embody that completely. Just that love energy, I promise you guys, is going to melt all of that. It just cannot compete. That to me is like that total acceptance, that total love, that just that willingness to be so honest and know that even if you get to the honest truth of how you're not showing up, you're still going to love yourself through it. That's what I'm talking about. Does that make sense? Give me a yes in the comments if this is resonating for me. Okay. So what I want to say is that this is not passive work. It's active work. Loving ourselves, like being honest with ourselves, is not like a passive act. Like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna be honest with myself. No, it's like active work in the sense of the choices that we're making, how we're being, how we're operating, the decisions that we're committing to, the ways that we're being in life, the ways that we're showing up. And I want to define what I mean by radical, revolutionary personal responsibility. And then I want to like actually walk us through a few different examples of that and kind of give you the context of like how this might show up very practically in our lives and our businesses. So I just want to remind us that, to me, when we take personal responsibility, it means that we have to say no to some things. So victimhood, we have to say no to that. Giving away our power, we have to say no to that. Making excuses, we have to say no to that. Blaming other people, we have to say no to that. Thinking we're somehow powerless, we have to say no to that. Looking outside of ourselves for the root of the problem, we actually have to say no to that. So just like take a deep breath here and acknowledge that like that might not be easy. There's a lot of times when you want to be like, well, they didn't do that and now I feel this way. Nope, we're not going to allow that anymore. This is like radical honesty. Personal responsibility is radical honesty. It's a willingness to take responsibility, and responsibility means like be like actively choosing how we're feeling and what we're doing. That's what's at the root of that word. And so this is really important, because when we're not honest with ourselves about why we're not experiencing the things that we desire, like that's when we're back on that paper thin foundation. So here's the deal, you guys. We can either actively love ourselves when we recognize that we're not, when we're playing the victim, when we're giving our power away, when we're making excuse. We can either actively love ourselves or we can abandon ourselves in those moments. That's why I say this solid foundation requires love. It's like, I know I'm going to be worthy even if I acknowledge my shortcomings here. And I just want to remind us of something, because I read it. It's like a daily guide with Jesus, and I read it every morning. And it said, the note that I read, and I'm just going to paraphrase here, was basically like, things come in divine timing. I have a divine timeline for you. God would not give you your whole life and everything you want at one moment because you couldn't handle it. So like, it's okay that everything hasn't like shown up yet. Everything hasn't shown up for any of us. There's no person in existence where like everything that they ever desire has already like come to be. There's always a timeline, right? And so part of this personal responsibility is recognizing your own personal evolution, and that things are coming as they should be coming, as you are ready to hold them and you have the capacity for that. That's the outside will never be more big and beautiful than you are on the inside, right? We have to have capacity to hold it. And so it's okay. We're still worthy. We're still deserving of all those things, even if they haven't happened yet, or even if we aren't experiencing all the things we want to experience or all the emotions that we want to feel, even in a particular moment. We're still worthy and deserving of them. And that's why we have to actively love ourselves, right? Rather than abandoning ourselves or taking off and, thinking nasty things about ourselves, head trash. No. Oh, I love you so much. We got this. We can do this, right? That kind of energy. Loving ourselves enough to move through it, that's what's going to create the momentum. That's what's going to create the expansion.